After COVID, hotel prices in Thailand nearly doubled. Some people in online comments called it straight up highway robbery. And you know what? Over the past few years, we all just smiled and paid up because we were so damn grateful to be traveling again. But now, everything has changed. For the first time since 2021, these prices are actually dropping. And I'm not talking about a little discount here and there. I'm talking about real, significant cuts that have hotel managers sweating. And that tells a story about Thailand's tourism industry that nobody's talking about. Let me paint you the picture of what really happened here. Remember 2021? We were all locked in our apartments, scrolling through old vacation photos. Thailand knew it, the hotels knew it, and when the borders finally opened, they struck gold. Room rates didn't just increase, they nearly doubled. Doubled. Think about that for a second. A hotel room that cost you 2,000 baht in 2020 was suddenly 3,800 baht by 2024. And we paid it, every single one of us. Because what choice did we have? The industry called it recovery pricing. I call it what it was, taking advantage of people who had been cooped up for 2 years and would pay anything to feel normal again. But now the music has stopped and nobody wants to be the last one standing without a chair. The numbers don't lie. Foreign arrivals dropped 7.2% in the first 8 months of this year compared to last year. We're looking at 2.4 million fewer tourists hitting Thai shores in 2025. That's a massive chunk of missing visitors instead of the flood the industry was banking on. And Thailand priced itself out of reach for a lot of middle-class families. I've been watching this unfold from the ground level, and it's fascinating in that slow-motion car crash kind of way. Walk through any major hotel in Bangkok right now, and you'll see the signs everywhere. Suddenly, there are unpublished promotions popping up in your email, rate cuts that they're calling seasonal adjustments, loyalty program bonuses that are way more generous than they used to be. The high-end properties in Bangkok are scrambling the hardest. These places got used to charging premium rates for rooms that, let's be honest, were nice but not that nice. Now they're quietly slashing prices and hoping nobody notices the desperation behind the marketing speak. But here's where it gets complicated. And this is what the industry reports won't tell you. This isn't entirely a bad thing. Don't get me wrong, I'm not celebrating people losing jobs or businesses struggling. That's real pain affecting real families. But as someone who loves Thailand, I have to admit there's a part of me that's relieved to see some market correction. Thailand was pricing itself into a corner. The country was becoming accessible only to luxury travelers and backpackers, with very little middle ground. Middle-class families from around the world, the bread and butter of sustainable tourism, were looking elsewhere because Thailand had become prohibitively expensive. And you know what? There are other places to get great pad thai and beautiful beaches. Vietnam has been aggressively courting tourists. Malaysia has been investing heavily in tourism infrastructure. The Philippines has been marketing itself as the more affordable alternative to Thailand. Competition caught up. The thing is, Thailand's tourism product is still world-class. The beaches are still stunning. The food is still incredible. The culture is still rich and welcoming. The problem was never the product. It was the pricing strategy that assumed demand would stay artificially high forever. Now we're seeing some fascinating shifts. India has become one of Thailand's top 5 source markets, which nobody saw coming 5 years ago. There are direct flights from over 15 Indian cities to Bangkok and Phuket now. There are a lot of complaints about how Indian tourists behave in Pattaya and other cities, but that's for another video. I've talked to hotel managers who are frustrated, and I get it. They've gotten used to easy money. They've made investments based on the assumption that they could keep raising rates indefinitely. Now they're having to actually work for their revenue again, offering real value instead of just capitalizing on scarcity. What's fascinating is watching the regional differences play out. The central and southern regions, Bangkok, Phuket, Koh Samui, are still commanding higher rates overall. But even they're feeling the pressure. Hotels in these areas are having to offer competitive discounting for the first time in years. The boutique properties are actually handling this better than the big chains, in some ways. They were never trying to maximize rates the same way, and their guests tend to be less price sensitive. It's the mid-tier hotels that got caught in the middle, too expensive for budget travelers, not special enough to justify premium pricing. Looking ahead, I think we're witnessing a recalibration rather than a collapse. Thailand is still one of the world's top tourism destinations. The infrastructure is there. The experience is there. The reputation is there. But the industry is being forced to remember that tourism is a service business, not an extraction industry. Here's my prediction. This is going to be good for Thailand's tourism industry in the long run. Not fun, not easy, but good. It's forcing a return to fundamentals, offering genuine value, competing on experience rather than just riding demand, and building sustainable business models instead of assuming boom times last forever. The paradise tax is finally coming due, and maybe, just maybe, that means paradise becomes accessible to more people again. The real test isn't whether Thailand can weather this downturn, it's whether the industry learns from it, whether they remember that tourism is about hospitality, not just maximizing revenue per available room. Bangkok is getting hit hard because it was the most overpriced to begin with. Those 5-star hotels that were charging 8,000 baht a night for rooms that were nice but not exceptional, they're panicking. Some have quietly dropped their rates by 30% and are praying nobody notices the desperation behind their limited time offers. As Bangkok prices drop, more budget-conscious travelers are extending their trips to include the northern regions. The digital nomad community, which was priced out of Bangkok during the peak years, is rediscovering what made Thailand attractive in the first place. Then there's the generational divide in how different types of travelers are responding to all this. The older travelers who remember Thailand from the 90s and early 2000s, they're cautiously optimistic. They've seen this cycle before, boom, bust, recovery, and they know that Thailand always finds a way to adapt. They're the ones taking advantage of the lower rates to revisit favorite spots or explore places they couldn't afford during the peak years. But the younger travelers, especially the ones who discovered Thailand through social media during the post-pandemic boom, they're confused and a little betrayed. They fell in love with an artificially inflated version of Thailand, and now that the market is correcting, they feel like they're getting less value, even though they're actually paying more reasonable prices. It's a weird psychological phenomenon. A hotel room that costs 3,000 baht today feels expensive to someone who expected to pay 2,000, even though that same room was 4,500 baht just 6 months ago. The industry is struggling to manage these perception issues, and honestly, they're not doing a great job. Instead of being transparent about the correction and positioning it as a return to better value, most operators are trying to pretend nothing has changed while quietly slashing prices behind the scenes. This is creating a trust problem that could be worse than the pricing problem in the long run. I've been watching how different hotel chains are handling the crisis, and the approaches are wildly different. The international chains are mostly playing defense, cutting costs, reducing services, and hoping to ride it out until demand returns. They have deep pockets and global portfolios, so they can absorb losses in Thailand. But there are also some concerning trends that could make the recovery much harder. The brain drain is real. A lot of experienced tourism professionals left the industry during the pandemic and never came back. Others are leaving now as conditions deteriorate. The institutional knowledge that made Thailand's hospitality sector world-class is walking out the door, and it's going to be incredibly difficult to rebuild. I talked to a former hotel general manager who now runs a small export business. She loved hospitality, was genuinely good at it, and had 15 years of experience managing luxury properties. But the stress of the boom-bust cycle, combined with the way companies treated employees during the downturn, pushed her out permanently. "I'm not going back," she told me flatly. "Even when things recover, I'm not putting myself through that again." Multiply that story across thousands of skilled workers, and you start to understand why Thailand's tourism recovery might take longer than anyone expects. There's also the infrastructure question that nobody wants to address honestly. During the boom years, Thailand built a lot of capacity very quickly. Hotels, restaurants, tour operations, transportation, all scaled up to handle what everyone assumed would be perpetual growth. Now there's massive overcapacity and the math doesn't work anymore. Some of this excess will naturally shake out through closures and consolidations. But the properties and businesses that survive are going to be operating in a fundamentally different environment, and not all of them are prepared for that reality. The government is trying to help, but their solutions mostly involve marketing campaigns and visa policy tweaks that don't address the core structural issues. They're still thinking about this as a temporary problem that can be solved by attracting more tourists, rather than a fundamental shift that requires reimagining how tourism works in Thailand. Meanwhile, other countries are learning from Thailand's mistakes and positioning themselves as better value alternatives. Vietnam, in particular, is being very aggressive about wooing the budget and mid-range travelers that Thailand priced out. So what happens next? I think we're looking at a 3-year adjustment period minimum. The operators that survive will be the ones that figure out how to create genuine value rather than just riding demand waves. The destinations that thrive will be the ones that invest in authentic experiences and sustainable development rather than just building more capacity. Thailand will recover, it always does, but it's not going to be the same Thailand that existed before the pandemic or during the post-pandemic boom. It's going to be something new, and whether that's better or worse depends on the choices being made right now by everyone from hotel owners to government officials to local communities. The tourists will come back eventually. The question is what they'll find when they do, and whether Thailand will have used this crisis to build something better or just waited for the old, unsustainable model to somehow resurrect itself. From where I'm sitting, watching this all play out day by day, I'm cautiously optimistic about the former. But time will tell whether that optimism is justified or just wishful thinking from someone who really wants Thailand to figure this out. Either way, it's going to be one hell of a story to watch unfold. What do you think about Thailand's tourism crisis? Are the price drops enough to bring you back, or are you looking at other destinations now? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from people who've been watching this unfold or have recent experiences there. Thanks for watching. If you found this helpful, please subscribe, share, and hit that like button. Until next time.